Hello, everybody, and welcome to another SIG Windows meeting. This is Michael from Apprenda. So we have a few folks today. I'll provide everybody with a quick update on what happened at KubeCon last week. I'll provide an update on what's happening with the release, and then we'll switch over to Aline that's going to give us a demo of OVN OVS using SIG Windows against 1.9. So last week we had a tremendous presence at the KubeCon conference. There pretty much a lot of the folks are on the call now. Patrick, Robert, myself, a few more other folks from Ticketmaster were there, and we did have a meeting, an unofficial meeting with about 40 plus members of the community. Excitement was really high at getting Windows server containers into the Kubernetes ecosystem as a beta. Our documentation is close to being complete. And we're also featured at a couple of the keynotes where they mentioned the excitement and as well as the features coming out of our SIG. We actually also have a blog post that will likely get released sometime this week. It's basically going to highlight some of the features that you have around networking and our CNI plugins, config maps, secrets, volumes, the kubeadm work, and all of that. So overall, there's a lot of features are coming in, and we also have a lot of work cut out for us before we go GA. A lot of customers actually asked, when are we going to go GA? And kind of the high-level thing that I mentioned was that we're targeting sometime the first half of 2018. So that could go at the March release or possibly at the June release. Very likely June. And we also had an unofficial discussion about, what are some of the things that we need to improve to actually get us to GA. And at a high level, we do need to figure out, what are we going to do around CADA containers and the Hyper-V isolation and kind of reconcile the two along with the work that's happening in SIG Node. We need to figure out and deploy a CI/CD, an end-to-end test pipeline for Windows Server containers so we can actually catch regressions and make sure that our code is also well tested. And then the last part is kind of producing a lot of documentation around, how do you get SIG Windows and Windows Server containers on different cloud providers, on bare metal, everything from build instructions, step-by-step deployment, as well as, completing some of the CNI work that's in the pipeline. So as you guys are well aware, the Flannel PR, it's still pending. So we're hoping that that's going to get completed. Then from the OVN, OVS standpoint, there's a couple of things that are going to come in. The first one is we are going to have support for Kubernetes network policies, as well as an OVN, OVS solution without overlays. So there's going to be a CNI without overlays. So overall, there's a tremendous amount of things happening and continuing to happen on the networking stack, as well as a few other things that will kind of tighten up the overall feature from the SIG perspective. Now, with respect with 1.9, I have some unfortunate news. There is a PR that went in not too long ago that broke kubeproxy on Windows. And Patrick, I CC'd you on the channel in Slack on this as well. So essentially, the bug is preventing kubeproxy from starting up in kernel space. And we do have a fix that's being worked on, and Bob is validating the fix. But we're running up against the wall for this, and I honestly don't know if they're going to allow this to be cherry picked or not. But as soon as I have more details, I'll update the SIG channel as well.
Okay, so I took a look at that because we originally opened the issue prior to KubeCon, and I thought that George at Microsoft already had a PR out for it. Was that not the full issue?
Yeah, no, that's the PR that hasn't gotten merged in. So correct.
Okay, so it's in master, but not in the beta branch.
No, yeah. It wasn't merged at all. I don't believe.
It was never merged.
Okay, my mistake. All right, thanks.
So by the way, I don't know if Madan has a Slack channel account, but I couldn't find him, so I couldn't CC him, so I CC'd you in the thread.
Okay, I'll ping them directly and see if I can get them to join.
Yeah.
And Mike, have you tried reaching out to what's his name? is the guy in charge of this, synchronizing all the merges into leading to the release.
Yeah, so
Um,
I have the release manager Anthony on the thread, so he's the one that's tracking all these things.
okay.
Yeah, so basically their reply, literally I'm talking to him right now. He's saying that he shouldn't hold the 1.9 train. But he says if it's ready to merge before the train leaves, he'll allow it. So he's saying if we can get it merged by end of today, he'll get it in. So can we? So Bob and Patrick, can you guys get with Madan as well? Let's try to push this as fast as possible. So they're giving us a window open that if we get it in today, they'll allow it for 1.9.
Do you need any reviews on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Aline, if you want to review this, that'd be great. I'll send you the PR.
Can you send the PR via Slack so we can all see it and maybe pitch in?
Yeah.
Votes?
So I'll send it right now, Aline.
Thank you.
I'm sending it to SIG Windows. Okay.
Yep. Super. We also found the issue when we tried to deploy on VMware. I think Stats is using get memory instead of get memory X. So that means you can add it from the registry if you're inside a hypervisor solution. I don't know if we can get that into 1.9 also.
I think that's gonna be pretty tough. Is a fix already made or?
We can write a PR for it, but we didn't write it at the moment. We just tried to deploy via 1.9 Alpha 2, I think. And the kubelet wasn't starting because it was trying to read the memory and it couldn't.
And this only happens for VMware?
I think for Fusion as well. So basically every type of VMware that's out there.
Can you forward a link to that in the Slack channel? Because I don't see any reason why it would fail under a hypervisor versus on hardware. I mean, I could see some confusion around it may not return the total size of memory correctly, but
it just gives you data invalid if you get a get last error on it. I'm guessing because you cannot read the performance counter while you're inside VMware.
All the performance counters should work.
I do recall seeing some conversation around that recently. VMware, running under VMware, having issues with reading memory or available memory.
Still, from my point of view, there are two problems. One, okay, we don't get the memory, but we shouldn't panic on that specific API call, from my point of view. And second of all, we should replace from get memory to get memory X. Link, can you try to fetch the PR? I think there was an coordination.
Yeah, if you guys can send the PR and put it on SIG Windows, we can take a look at that. I don't know if, going back to them right now and asking for a second PR to be approved for tonight on 1.9 is going to be risky, but we can see if that's an option. On another note, Patrick, I did approve your docs PR that you created yesterday, so that's already should be ready for merging.
Okay. Yeah, I'm working on getting the CLA approval because I'm not entirely sure who the approver is, so I'll get it done.
Yeah, I think Jason had a similar issue with the CLA approval because I think he signed up both as an individual contributor and as part of Microsoft. Microsoft does have a CLA, so I think the pipeline only allows you to have one or the other, so you can have both.
Okay, thanks. I'll check on that.
All right, cool. All right, so any questions or anything that we've talked about so far, or can we move on to the demo by Aline? All right, Aline, you can take it over.
There would be one more question.
Yeah.
Can you post the talk you had internally about SIG Windows on config maps, volumes, and so on somewhere, so me and Aline can see it?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said, Aline. Can you say that again, please?
Sure. Can you please post the kind of a white paper what you had at OVSCon at KubeCon?
I didn't have any slides last week at KubeCon. So I did, like, the discussion we had was more of an open-ended discussion. We had, talking to people. I opened up a roadmap document, the one that's linked on SigWindows. It's one of the pinned documents, and then we just walked people through that and talked to them. There was nothing specific to that. If you want to see the documentation we have on config maps, I do have that, and I can send you that.
Okay, so either that or a recording on what you talked. So
yeah, there was no recording because the problem was that it's not an official Kubernetes talk, so they don't record those. So it was more of a SigWindows meetup rather than an official conference talk. So they didn't record it for us, unfortunately. But I'll send you the link to the documentation for that do have, that's basically going to go out for 1.9.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right. So Aling, you want to take over for the demo?
Yep, I'm gonna share my screen now. Can you see it? Hey, can you see the share screen?
Yes, I can see it. Sorry, I was muted.
So for this deployment, we've seen a lot of deployments using cloud providers. For this one, we chose to do it locally on premise. So I have here 4 nodes running on my laptop. I have 2 Linux nodes, Ubuntu 16.04, and 2 Windows nodes. One Windows stable version, and the other one, it's Windows latest version 1709. And here I have the nodes. I deployed Kubernetes 1.9.0 beta 2. As the classical deployment, I have the tunneling between the hosts of the cluster using gnetlib type. And I have no pods created at the moment. I have here prepared already a few JSON and YAML files to create the pods. I'm just gonna go ahead and create the Apache service first. Then I'm gonna create the Apache pod. Then I'm gonna create the busybox just to see if there's a connection on Linux. Gonna create another Nginx pod. I'm gonna create 2 containers on the IIS on the Windows Server 1709, an IIS container and the Nano container inside the same pod. And I'm gonna create another IIS on the stable version of Windows. And this should be something looks wrong with the Nginx pod.
Is it missing the OS label?
No, it's not missing.
No, it's there.
Just retry to pull it. It's probably because of the DNS. I mean,
It could be also because of the resources, because since it's running locally, I don't have too many resources. And there you go. I have all the containers created. I'm gonna now show the connectivity to each container from the master node. So we have the Apache pod. We can ping it. Now we're gonna try the IIS, which is running on the Windows Server stable version. You can see the IP. We can
Let's
ping
try
it.
to say RS1 and RS3 because they're both stable.
Okay. Since it's an IIS, we can also do an CURL on it, and you can see we can fetch it. Now I'm gonna list the containers from the Windows Server 1709. I also have connectivity to it. And the last, which is the Nginx. It has connectivity as well.
Very nice.
Can you go inside the RS3 deployment, Aline, and log in inside the pod and do a wget on localhost? So,
Yeah, it's just a portage. Just a second, I'm gonna reach there.
okay.
Okay. I'm gonna show the services that I got created in Kubernetes. So I have the Apache service, and I can see the virtual AP, which is this one, and it points to the three containers, the Apache one, the Nginx one, and the IIS container. I can do a CURL to the service IP. I can say I get the IIS, I get the Apache now, IIS, Apache, and I get an Nginx. So it's load balancing between the three containers. Now going to the
Very cool.
So this is the Windows Server 1709. As you see, we have three containers. We have the infra container, we have a nano server, and the IIS. I'm just gonna enter the nano server container first. Then I'm gonna open another shell, and I'm gonna enter now the IIS. And since they are sharing the same endpoint, they have the same network details as IP and MAC address. As you can see, it has 10.0.4.3, and also the MAC address is the same. This IP is given automatically by OVN and as well with the MAC address. Yeah, this is the nano server container, and since they are using the same endpoint, I can access the IIS using the localhost instead of the IP. It just works. I have no idea what is wrong with the console.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that weird formatting. But
Yeah, it's a bit weird. But yeah, you can now do invoke web request and access the local host from any containers inside the pod. And to show that as well, since there is only one endpoint created for the pod, there will be only one port inside OVS. So this is the port which will correspond to all the containers running inside that pod. So this is the port per pod. Now, since I have an external gateway, I can also I have external access inside the pods, inside the containers from the pod. I can pick like 8888 from inside the containers. I can also access the internal IPs of the cluster from inside the pods. And you can also use the service IPs from inside the node. So I can just go to the Chrome application and I can put the IP. And if you send me, I got sent to IIS, I have to open an incognito window because I need to reset the connection. I get to Apache, Nginx, and this load balancing between the three of them. Again, this is the service IP, which points out to the three containers.
Okay,
This is very cool stuff, guys. This is amazing to be able to get to this point. So it's awesome.
just as a reminder, we're running a CNI on both of them. If you can show the service name.
Yep, so I have the service for kubelet is running CNI, network plugin CNI. And I have the CNI plugin listed under CNI, which is ovn_CNI.
And this is basically both for RS1 and for RS3. So it's just one CNI and you drop it under the kubelet service and it just works.
Yeah, and I updated the documentation saying initially I thought you guys were producing two CNIs, one for RS1 and one for RS3, but I updated to include that it's all a single CNI that based on the version of Windows it makes a change.
Yep. Another cool thing that you are able to do, so you can create as well VMs. So I have here a VM, I created an Ubuntu 16.04 inside the Hyper-V. And I attached it to the virtual switch on which Open vSwitch is running. Then I added the port, then I could add the port to OVS and put it inside OVN controller. So I have the IP from inside the cluster IPs. So I have from inside the VM access to the cluster resources. So for example, I can pick the master node and I can as well access the virtual IP for the service, which is 86. So I got Apache, Windows IIS, Nginx, and yeah, this is from the VM, which is running on the Hyper-V.
Can you also show the script because it's not that complicated?
Yeah, that was the next thing. So you just have to set the name of the network or the VM network adapter. You just tell this you just use the set VM network adapter obvious port direct. You give the VM name and then the obvious port name that you want to use. You add that port under brint. Then you connect to the OVN. You add the port under the switch under the switch which is used for that host. Then this is just to fetch the MAC address because we had to give the MAC address to OVN. We set some external IDs for that interface inside OVS. And then at the end, we set the MAC address and the IP address that we want to use for the VM, such that OVN controller will take care and will not use the IP address that we gave to the VM to other containers from that host. So basically, the VM will act as a container inside OVN. So if you go in OVN and look here, we have the VM port, which is like any other pod port. So we have here the default IS, and we have as well the VM1 port, which is the port for VM.
So as a takeaway over here would be if we have Hyper-V containers or Kubernetes may someday in the end manage VMs as well. From our point of view, everything is either a port or a logical port inside OVN, so it doesn't matter.
And the last thing, which is the network policies. So OVN has just
So until now, we showed everything we had before. Right now, what Alin will show you is basically applying Kubernetes network policies over the entire cluster.
Yep, so OVN has the so-called ACLs. You can apply them. You're not going to apply them directly through OVN. You will just go, and I have here the YAML with policy. I just chose a dumb YAML which blocks every traffic for all the containers inside the cluster. They're just going to go ahead and create the policy. If I do OVN and BCTL, and I'm going to show all the ACLs, I'm going to see that we have the ACLs created with the action drop for each pod from inside the cluster. So now if we go, let's say go here and try to ping, we still have access to the node actually, but we cannot ping the gateway, for example, or to ping the other containers from inside the cluster.
And when is this work for support for network policies going to come in? Are you guys thinking like early next year?
It's already there.
It's there. I mean, we also have DNS support, but we didn't package it probably. We can try to release some bundles and some better slides, I think, on the next meeting.
Okay.
As an idea from OVN side, it's basically distributed firewalling. Whatever you apply gets applied to the node. So basically, whatever change you made is directly on top of that node. Similar for DNS. The DNS request will never get out if it's used from us. So it's basically a distributed DNS. You don't need another process which actually gets the request and responds and so on. It's just another flow rule applied on top of that controller. It will catch the DNS request and just being pushed directly back. It's similar what we do for the HTTP as well, although Kubernetes doesn't use the HTTP, but it's a nice use case for OpenStack, for example.
Very cool. All right, so running close to time as well. So we'd love to hear more about the network policies next week, Alin. So we can do follow up on that. Robert, we did have that email from Chris on the pod selectors and labels. I did not forget about that. We'll discuss it possibly next meeting. Like it's not going to be an easy problem to solve. So let's figure out how to do this right.
Just one other thing, Alin, can you recreate the policy, do a ping, delete the policy, and see the same connection?
Yeah, that's what I did already, if you look here. So I created the policy I couldn't ping, I deleted it, I can ping again, I created it, I couldn't ping again, then I deleted it, I could ping again the pod. And the cool thing is that this does not require a proxy, so the only thing that it requires on the Windows node is the OVN controller.
And the same thing for DNS, you're not relying on kubedns, it's basically done inside our deployment. Now, as an idea is you can either create your own DNS service for it, we support that as well. But if you want to do like a distributed DNS, you can just use ours, because it's built in.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Alin for the demo. These are awesome to see. Obviously, great progress across the board for both with RS3 and without, especially the support for network policies. So we'll get that documented and get it out to folks. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Patrick will follow up on the kube-proxy PR in the Slack channel. So you mentioned that George was pinged, so we'll follow up that there. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, we'll keep going. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.